All right, another stellar day weather-wise. Stellar if in fact we didn't have these conditions that we have, these drought conditions and these conditions which are creating all types of havoc for forest fires and for firefighters, of course. But nonetheless, still nice weather. I mean, look, if you're a beachgoer, you certainly love it. But look, we are in the midst of I don't know where this compares. We'll talk to Allister Aalders later in the show, but where this compares to the decades past, what the empirical data says concerning drought and string of no rain. But I can't recall. Now, my memory's short. I think everybody's memory's short generally for the most part. We tend to think we remember the past well, but we generally don't. But I can't recall in my lifetime a string of no rain like this. I mean, again, perhaps it was the case. I don't know. But, I mean, we have had nothing, zero, zip, almost no rain at all for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. It's just unbelievable. And, of course, we know that as a result of this, there is this woods ban, this travel ban, which a lot of people have talked about. And I saw a story today on our website, and in it is, quote, it's a Wilfrid Laurier biology professor, Jennifer Baltzer, who I've reached out to see if I can get Jennifer on the show. Also, Canada Research Chair in Forests and Global Change, and is from the Annapolis Valley. She said it's reasonable in the story, reasonable to expect these sorts of government-imposed restrictions, travel restrictions, as climate change results in hotter and drier summers. Here's a quote. It says, as we experience conditions on the ground that are riskier, people are going to have to modify their behavior to help mitigate potential accidental ignitions, she said in a recent interview. However, Baltzer said governments have a lot of work to do to tackle the root cause of the worsening fire season's climate change. A quote again from her, she said, we really need to be implementing much stronger climate change mitigation policies than governments currently are, because that's ultimately where the solution is. So, what are your thoughts on this, folks? Do you think that would you be okay with these types of restrictions year after year after year after year, or similar restrictions? Would you be okay with that, or do we need to come up with a better plan and manage this better than this? Because I think that like kind of like the COVID measures in the beginning, I think for the most part saw the need and got behind them and were supportive of them and were okay with them. But as time dragged on, they become less and less popular, and as a matter of fact became extremely unpopular, and to the point where governments read the political winds and dropped the measures. And I would probably say that would likely be the case with these types of measures as well. That if summer after summer were imposed with these types of restrictions, I think you would see less and less willingness to comply. I think that's just the nature of this type of thing. So what are your thoughts on what the professor has to say here? Do you agree with her? Do you think that these types of measures are going to become the norm? And do you think that government needs to do more when it comes to climate change, whatever that looks like? Do you think that municipalities like Halifax should be spending 3% of its total budget to go towards climate mitigation and its Halifax plan? Do you think that that'll make a difference? What are your thoughts on the federal government and its apparent willingness to build pipelines? Do you think that perhaps that is contradictory to what the climate is telling us, or do you think that's all just that these types of weather conditions are seasonal and cyclical? Again, some things you can talk about when we open the phone lines between 11 and 12. That and whatever else you've got in your mind, of course. It will be an open hour, and whatever you'd like to get into. Water bombers is another big controversial but a serious issue here in the province. We talked a lot about it yesterday, of course, because earlier in the week, the Premier of the province, Tim Houston, basically downplayed the need for water bombers here in the province, saying that in most instances we don't need them, and said that the 4 helicopters in which we do have are sufficient. along with our firefighting resources on the ground. And I suggest that is political cover and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially considering we required and desperately needed the help of New Brunswick's water bombers this week, and thank goodness we had them when it comes to the Bears Lake fire, in which everybody there who witnessed it say that and the Premier basically said it himself, said without those water bombers it could have been a much more dire situation. So if that's the case, then does it make any sense that we don't need water bombers? And I think that the need would be immediate to begin the procurement process to get water bombers. And if that takes a few years, well, at least get the ball rolling. Why deny? Why be in denial? Why kid ourselves to say that we don't need them? So again, some other things that you can talk about when we open the phone lines between 11 and 12. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job as always. All right, joining us now is Amanda Dean, Insurance Bureau Canada's Vice President of Ontario and Atlantic. Amanda, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Todd.
All right, so lots to talk about when it comes to fire coverage, and unfortunately, people in this region know, certainly too many people know firsthand what this is like to need insurance. With the Tantallon fires, of course, however, over 150 homes destroyed not all that long ago. So what I guess, advice, what tips, what would you like people to know from an insurance vantage point as we are in dealing with wildfires, and it looks like we're going to continue to deal with wildfires?
Absolutely. It's unfortunately something that seems to be becoming a bit common in our part of the world. When it comes to wildfire or any type of fire, quite frankly, with a typical home insurance policy, typical condo insurance policy, typical tenant insurance policy, you are covered. You are covered for, especially in the case of a home insurance policy, you're covered in the event of a partial or complete loss. You have contents coverage, so that includes your sofa, everything in your kitchen, everything in your bedroom, all of those particular items. You're also covered for additional living expenses, and that's the item that we anticipate there's going to be some questions about in the coming days as evacuations start to happen a bit further within some of these communities that are impacted. If you have a home insurance, condo insurance, tenant insurance policy, you do have coverage for additional living expenses. So if you find yourself in a hotel, if you find yourself needing the services of a laundromat in order to do some laundry, those types of costs will be covered. Anything over and above what you would normally be spending if you were going about your everyday normal life is covered under additional living expenses. Keep your receipts. If you don't have the room on your credit card, give your insurance company a call to see if money can be forwarded from that portion of your policy.
Is there usually a cap on time and money when it comes to this type of coverage?
It is subject to limits, and those limits are going to look different in everyone's policy. We completely understand that as you are fleeing for safety, you have first responders on your doorstep telling you to move. You're not looking for your insurance policy. So make sure that you give your insurance broker, agent, or insurance company directly a call. Another alternative is to give IBC's Consumer Information Center a call. We can help answer some really basic questions and perhaps even connect you with your insurance company. Our toll-free number is 1-844-227-5422.
Okay, what else would you like people to know about? If in fact they need to have a claim, if their home is impacted, what else is good information for people to know about?
If your home is impacted by any of these wildfires, it's good to have a sense of what you had in your home. Many of us on a daily basis, we don't think about what we have in our home. We have a lot of stuff in our homes, whether, it's you walk through the kitchen, plates, cutlery, pots, pans, all of that stuff adds up. If you are in a nearby community and you think there is even a potential that you could be evacuated, good idea to take your mobile phone, walk around your house from room to room. In the video, mention what you're seeing. Is there a TV in the living room? Is there 2 sofas? Are there 8 pillows? What are you seeing in each room? That can be helpful in the absolute worst case scenarios if you have a complete loss. An insurance company does require the homeowner to fill out what's called a proof of loss. It's basically an inventory of what you had in your home. Having that video will make that process so much smoother, because after you've lost everything, trying to think of what you had is difficult. So do that work in advance, and we all hope you will never have to use it.
Yeah, being proactive, even without fires, as a risk, is something that is prudent, right?
Absolutely. And of course, keeping that first priority of getting you and your family to safety. Insurance is, of course, secondary, but we are here when you need us, when you're ready.
Okay, when it comes to cleanup and damage and all of that, what advice do you give to people when it comes to assessing whether you should do the cleanup or not yourself, whether it be smoke damage or whatever it might be?
Well, that's a great question. First and foremost, if you are evacuated, do not enter until the authorities say that it's
Veinotte Show.
And ensure that you're taking all appropriate safety precautions. Have a conversation with your insurance representative or with your insurance company directly through their toll-free number. They will be able to help identify what you can and can't do. And of course, you know physically what you can do in terms of cleanup, but double checking with your insurer, letting them know, okay, you can clean up this debris, and of course, keeping any costs associated with cleanup, because that will be able to be reimbursed through your claim that you may be making. So if you are engaging in cleanup, if you do incur expenses as a result, keep those receipts. Make sure your insurance company is in the loop on what you are doing.
Okay, and of course, if you have a total loss, then this gets more complicated, because you're going to be out of your home for an extended period of time, and then your expenses are going to be much higher. So I would think that working closely with your insurance company is always important, but it amplifies, I would think, the longer and bigger the loss.
Absolutely, the longer and the bigger the loss. And of course, if we're talking about a total loss situation, then there's things to consider in terms of, is there a mortgage still on the building, the home? In those instances, the portion of the policy to pay off the mortgage, the mortgage lender is paid first in those situations of a total loss. So then the payout, if you will, would be that amount minus what the mortgagee is owed. So keep that in mind as well.
All right. What advice do you have for businesses here who are impacted? Because a lot of businesses would be certainly impacted by this. What tips do you give?
A lot of businesses. So when it comes to the physical structure, similar situation. Whatever insurance a business has for the structure, they are eligible to file those claims. Now, when it comes to business insurance, it's a bit more of a la carte process. With home insurance, it's a very typical standard product. You're insuring your home. In terms of a business, business owners can pick and choose coverage a bit more. So just refreshing yourself on what it is that you chose given your financial situation at the time of taking out that policy. Now, if your business is closed for a period of time resulting from the wildfire, you could be eligible for the business interruption or business income insurance portion of that commercial policy. Now, there's two different types of business interruption coverage. There's limited. So that policy would pay for the losses of earnings until the business is fixed. In terms of extended business interruption coverage, that coverage would continue to pay until a business resumes its normal pre-interruption level of business income. So good to know which business interruption policy you have, especially if you're a small business and are impacted by these wildfires.
All right. And lastly, seasonal or secondary residences, what tips do you give to people?
Seasonal and secondary residences, so cottages, cabins, and the like, those policies are a bit different than home insurance policies. They may be subject to different limits. Those of us that have cottages and cabins also have, some of them are more dolled up than others. Some are very rustic. Some are furnished as well as our homes. So knowing what your limits are, knowing what that policy looks like will be helpful in that situation. And of course, a call to your insurance representative to talk through, if you experience a loss with a secondary property, what your situation will look like. Also important to note, especially in some of the communities that are being impacted right now, brokers and agents' offices will also be impacted. So if you can't get a hold of your broker or your agent, so the person that you typically call to take out those insurance policies, there's a good chance that their business is interrupted at this point in time as well. They can't get to the office. There's something impeding access to that particular building. Look on your policy to see the insurance company name. All insurance companies have toll-free numbers, and all insurance companies right now are on high alert for all of the wildfires that are happening throughout Atlantic Canada.
Amanda, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, take care. Amanda Dean, Insurance Bureau of Canada's Vice President of Ontario and Atlantic. The 45th Atlantic International Film Festival announces its full program. We'll get the details when we come back. The 45th International Film Festival announcing its 2025 program, which kicks off Wednesday, September 10th, goes till September 17th, of course, here in Halifax. Lisa Aalders, Director of Programming and Interim Executive Director at the Atlantic International Film Festival, and joins us to talk about all this. Lisa, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so pretty exciting day for you guys, no doubt, right?
Yeah, no, we're excited to finally announce all of our films to the festival this year.
All right, so let's get to it. What are some of the key highlights you'd like people to know about?
Yeah, so we are celebrating 45 years this year at the festival. So we are going to be celebrating Atlantic filmmakers and storytellers who will be taking the center stage alongside some films that receive some wide praise from film festivals around the world. And we are offering a lot of exciting things to celebrate our milestone, including 3 days of free public programming in cinema, free screenings, and free events for the public to enjoy.
Okay, is there a theme this year, or do you have themes?
We don't have an overall theme. We're really just leaning into celebrating 45 years. So it's a good look back at what we've done in the past and what brought us to the festival we are today. So the teams, the films, and, you know, what has made our festival unique over the last 45 years. We're really trying to celebrate that. And so some of the free screenings, for example, are all Atlantic classics. So we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Anne of Green Gables miniseries by Kevin Sullivan. We have the 10th anniversary of Closet Monster from Stephen Dunn from Newfoundland, and the 25-year anniversary of Parsley Days by Andrea Dorfman from Nova Scotia. So a few examples of some of the things that we're really excited to showcase for free this year. All
right. What else would you like people to know about? What about is there a main gala, or is there what can you tell people about this?
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. So we have over 100 films. We have 60 features and 6 programs of short films. But of course, we have some galas as well. So we have our opening night gala, our Atlantic gala, our shorts gala, and our closing night gala, all of which are really highlights for the festival. So the opening night is a alumni of the festival. Their name is Brett and Hannum. They opened their festival a few years ago with a film called Wildhood. And this one is a genre-bending, otherworldly drama that follows estranged brothers who journey to avenge the spirits that haunt them. It's called Skidega Mujawagadig at a Place of Ghosts. And that's on our opening night on the September 10th.
Okay, what are the others?
We have our closing night. It's called Kiss of the Spider Woman. It's from Dreamgirls director Bill Condon, and it's a musical drama that stars Jennifer Lopez, who really dazzles in it. It debuted at Sundance this year, and it's a real audience pleaser. If you love lavish Technicolor musicals, this is where you go. So very excited about that. And then our Atlantic Gala this year is a really highly anticipated debut from Grammy-nominated director Andy Hines, who's from Annapolis Valley, and it's based on true events of a remote fishing and mining town that became a hub for drug smuggling. So it's shot in Cape Breton and Halifax, and it stars some amazing Nova Scotian talent like Stephen McCaddy, Steve Lund, Auden Thornton, and so this will be a really exciting celebration for our Atlantic Gala. We're thrilled to be presenting this film.
Okay, are there some kind of unknowns that get a chance to get seen here at this event?
Yes, we show films from recognizable filmmaking talent and then emerging film talent as well. And so some filmmakers you'll recognize their names, and others are just starting out. So there's a little bit of everything. We show classics, dramas, documentaries, comedy, romance. We really think that there's something for everyone in the program. And if you're interested in Atlantic stuff specifically, we have a lot of amazing talent, including a film from Newfoundland from Sherry White called Blueberry Grunt. It's a dramedy about a couple on an anniversary trip where they go blueberry picking. We have local filmmaker Taylor Olson has their new film, which is incredible, show called What We Dreamed of Then. And then we have a lot of debuts coming out as well. So filmmakers with their first features, including Blue Heron by Sophie Brambari from Ontario, just had a big premiere in Locarno, and a comedy called Follies by Eric Boulien from Canada as well. So there's a lot. There's 60 feature films, so you have your choice.
Okay, are all the films screened at Cineplex?
All of the films are screened at Cineplex Park Lane in downtown Halifax. We take over the theater for those 8 days. And so from morning until night, you can choose your film to see, and tickets are on sale now, and so people can have a variety of ways to get involved, either with a single ticket. We have new member pricing, we have ticket packages, we have passes that give you access to all of the festival films and events, and so depending on how much or how little, you are welcome to join us, and we're really hoping that people who have not come to the festival come and see what we do. We really think there's something for everyone this year, and we're excited to have everyone come and join us for the celebration of the 45th.
Okay, and if people want to know more about it, they can check it out all online. Direct people where they can find you online.
Yeah, of course. So all of our information is on our website. We are the Atlantic International Film Festival, and our website is atlanticfilmfestival.ca.
Okay, Lisa, appreciate it. Good luck. Have a great festival. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care. Lisa Haller, Director of Programming and Interim Executive Director at the Atlantic International Film Festival. U.S. Politics with Mark Brewer when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, joining us for a chat is Mark Brewer, Political Science Professor at the University of Maine. Mark Brewer, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
No, I'm happy to be with you, Todd.
You must be back on campus soon, eh? I would assume. Probably already, are you?
Yes, I was in for a little bit yesterday, and next week I think will be the first time in a while. At least the plan right now is to be there all 5 days. Students will be here in about 2.5 weeks.
Wow, I can't believe the summer just whips on by, right? It's just unbelievable.
It seems to go faster every year.
Yeah, for sure. What are conditions like as far as we have forest fires and tinder dry conditions here in the Maritimes? I'm assuming the same in Maine.
Yeah, it's incredibly dry here. I was saying to my wife this morning, I don't think we've had rain in Orono, other than maybe a sprinkle here or there in probably 3 weeks. I was reading in the local newspaper today we're inches under where we're supposed to be. Fire danger is super high. So yeah, it's super dry here too, and we see the haze and the smoke from your forest fires, and we're hoping for some relief for you on that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right, let's talk about what's going on in Alaska today with this summit, I suppose we're calling it, with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Who brokered this deal first, or this? Who put this together? This meeting?
That's a good question. There seems to be a little some ambiguity around that, right? I mean, it sounds like, if you listen to Trump, it sounds like he's the one that actually set it up. But if you go back and maybe follow the paper trail, it seems that Putin's been calling for this one-on-one with Trump, excluding Europe and excluding Ukraine for a while. And so I don't know if this is certainly it seems that it's what Putin wanted, right? I mean, I think that is probably fair to say. And then Trump gave it the green light. I think would have to be obviously the case. It wouldn't be happening if he hadn't approved it. But in terms of who originated the idea, I don't know, but it seems like maybe it was Putin.
Okay, so what's at stake here? Obviously, talking about Ukraine, that's the only issue that they're discussing, or that's what this is about. Is it Ukraine?
Well, I mean that's what it was supposed to be about, right? Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be about Ukraine, and it still will be. But it sounds like Putin is planning on bringing some other issues, or at least attempting to bring some other issues to the table. He wants to talk about arms proliferation, right? The United States and Russia still have kind of one arms agreement in place. I think there were three, and again, I'm no nuclear disarmament expert, but I believe there were three in place. Two of them have been allowed to lapse. I think there's one left. Putin indicated he wanted to talk about that. And then he also indicated he wanted to talk economics and trade deals and business deals. And maybe the best way to get Trump's attention is to talk business deals. So I think there's some worry, right? If you listen to some European leaders and some Ukrainian leaders, there's some worries that, Putin might be able to dangle some kind of business deal carrot in front of Trump and maybe get him to agree to something on Ukraine that the Ukrainians and the Europeans wouldn't like. That's all speculation, of course. I guess we'll have to wait and see what they actually talk about, at least in terms of what they tell us what they talk about, right? I don't know if we'll ever know for sure exactly what they talked about.
All right, Zelensky was not invited to this, and obviously it seems to me that if you're going to negotiate a deal, would it not be prudent to have one of the leader of one of the countries directly involved at that meeting?
One would think that it would be very difficult to broker a deal without the head of one of the countries involved at the table. Trump, seemingly caught off guard a little bit by some of the pushback on that and said, well, this is just going to be a preliminary meeting. It's a listening session. We're going to, of course, have a follow-up meeting where Zelensky and Ukraine will be represented. I don't think that's terribly reassuring to Zelensky and the Ukrainians or the Europeans either, for that matter. So, yeah, it's hard to see. It's really hard to see how anything that comes out of today could be to the benefit of the Ukrainians without them having a seat at the table. I mean, I suppose you can't rule it out, but generally, if you're not at the table, you're not having much of a say.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to Trump's response to will you get a deal or not, and it's kind of typical response, I'll know within a minute or two, and that type of kind of typical response that Trump gives now. What are your thoughts on this style that Donald Trump? I mean, look, one thing he is consistent, right?
That's true. I mean, he is consistent, so that you can't fault him for being inconsistent. That's for sure. That kind of approach to deal making, and again, I'm not a foreign policy expert, and I'm certainly not an experienced business person, right? But I mean, it would seem to me that his deal making approach probably works better in the business world, at least the world of real estate development, which is where, of course, he came out of, than it does in foreign policy, where things often take a long time. They're incredibly detailed. There's lots of back and forth that goes on, and deals can take months, if not years, to hammer out. In terms of foreign policy, they're generally not reached within minutes, right? And I know that Trump has had, some officials from his administration meeting with Putin and some others from Russia. So yes, there has been some groundwork laid for this. But the idea of coming out of there today, or knowing within minutes whether you're going to have a deal or not, and then coming out with one maybe, seems to me to not match up with my understanding of how foreign policy agreements are usually reached.
Yeah, and again, a deal, I mean, what's a deal even look like without Zelensky being at the table to decide, or the EU, other stakeholders who are much closer proximity to the actual war than the United States is? What gives the United States, I suppose, the social license to broker a deal here? Is it because of their economic backing, or its power ranking in the world, or what gives the U.S. social license to broker a deal?
Well, there's certainly nothing that formally gives the U.S. the license to do that, right? It's not like they've been deputized by the UN or NATO or any organization that could give it even a semblance of a stamp of official approval. I think, what Trump would say, and if you were a realist in foreign policy, what you could say is, well, it's the United States' position as a superpower that allows it to broker the deal here. I'm not sure that would hold up terribly well in reality, even if you are coming at this from a realist perspective, because as we've talked about, the Ukrainians have to be involved in this deal. One would think if a deal does come out today out of this listening session, summit, meeting, whatever you want to call it, if they come out of this today with a deal and the Ukrainians don't like it and the European Union doesn't like it and other NATO allies don't like it, it's hard to see the deal getting implemented, right? You'd think you'd have to have these folks on board. So I guess, again, I just don't see a deal, at least one that's implementable, coming out of today. I mean, maybe the best case scenario you could hope for is Trump and Putin agree on some parameters for moving forward. And okay, the next step is, here's a framework. We're going to involve Ukrainians. We're going to bring the European Union on board. We're going to get some NATO involvement here, and then we'll have a next step. That might be the best thing that you could hope for today. But I suppose we won't know until later on today.
Yeah, for sure. But potentially here, this could be, I suppose, if Trump were to somehow manage to get a deal, air quotes, a deal, and Ukraine were to agree upon it, this could be huge for Trump, right? And his brand, obviously.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if he comes out of this today with a deal that the Ukrainians are willing to accept and he ends this conflict, he constantly talks about wanting the Nobel Peace Prize. He'd probably get it. It would be huge for his reputation as a deal maker, right? That's how he always wants to portray himself. His best-selling book of the many he wrote was The Art of the Deal. He says, I do deals all the time. So it would be huge for his brand. And maybe in another real-world implication is it would provide him with some momentum for trying to reach a deal on the other major global conflict that the Trump administration has been focused on, and that's the situation in Gaza. So, there's a lot at stake here, obviously, today for all kinds of folks, both directly involved with Ukraine, but also outside of Ukraine.
Yeah, for sure. Before I let you go, lastly, I want to ask you what's going on here, or what your takeaway is on what his move is with the National Guard in Washington and moving in the National Guard, citing crime statistics that aren't accurate, not even close to being accurate. But why do this? Is this political or is this a power move, or what's the motivation for Trump to do this?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's political, right? I mean, this is about It's not about policy. It's not about reducing crime in D.C., at least not directly, right? I mean, any major city is going to have crime, right? Even the best governed cities have crime. The levels of crime in D.C., I'm not saying any level of crime is acceptable, but crime rates have been going down in Washington over the last couple of years. There's no immediate, massive upsurge in crime in D.C., right? It would seem to me that the immediate impetus for this is the carjacking of a attempted carjacking involving a DOJ official, right? And that's kind of set Trump off. But the real political benefit for Trump is law and order. Guy who comes in and restores law and order. He's going to take care of criminals. He's going to make America safe for everyone. And that plays into Trump's image of himself. It plays into his brand. And any time that he can emphasize that, whether it's with crime in D.C. or cracking down on illegal immigration into the United States, he's going to take that opportunity because it allows him to play to one of his strengths. It's a political winner for him. Makes lots of sense for him to do that, especially if he wants to draw attention away from other things. And so it makes perfectly good sense for him to do this. And now he's talking about trying to spread beyond D.C. So we'll see if he actually takes that step.
Mark, always great. Appreciate it. We'll do it again.
All right, sounds good, Todd.
Okay, pal. Take care. Mark Brewer, University of Maine political science professor. Claudia Chender, when we come back.
Acts.
All right, joining us for a chat is Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP and official opposition here in Nova Scotia. Claudia, thanks for joining the show.
Nice to be here. Good morning.
All right, so first off, let's talk about the fire situation and here in Nova Scotia, and I guess what's your some messaging to Nova Scotians in what are challenging times.
Oh yeah, I mean it's really a heartbreaker and it's scary. So I think my first message is just an enormous thank you to the firefighters out there across this province who are responding, and to our maritime neighbors who have, come in and helped us. I think it's, the moving part of these situations is to see the ways that people come together to help each other. And this is certainly no exception. But conditions are dangerous and dry, notwithstanding the rain last night. We know that the Annapolis Valley fire continues to grow, that other fires are coming. So people need to really remain vigilant. And it's hard to do, right? These are the dog days of summer. These are when people want to be out and around, and we just need to be so careful. And also, I just really want to, spread some love for our farmers who are, I was at the Halifax County exhibition a few days ago, and boy, what a tough time, right? It's really hard for our farmers who are just doing the best they can with very difficult conditions. So I think as folks are around the province, visit a farmer's market, visit a farm stand, help support those folks whose work is really challenging in the best of times, but most of it is a labor of love at this point because the financial returns are sometimes dubious. But, in the meantime, we need to make sure that, once we move into cooler seasons and when the rain comes, that we do a real, evaluation of whether we are ready for the next time, because our weather is changing. So, do we have the right equipment? Are we resilient enough? Do we have the climate policies that we need to make sure that we're kind of mitigating the experience and making sure those fires have less room to grow and breathe? Those are all things that we're certainly going to be talking about into the fall.
All right, on the equipment question, the Premier earlier in the week said that according to a recent study, that water bombers are not needed. Fixed wing aircraft water bombers are not needed for most situations. What's your response to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in firefighting or equipment, but I think, this goes to the point that the conditions that we're experiencing now are not conditions that we've ever experienced before. And I think that's going to continue to be true. So, if the Premier says that that's been the evaluation, I have no reason not to believe that. But I think we need to do some serious forecasting about what's going to happen to our weather and to our fire risk in the, years to come. Because
we rely on kind of trading that equipment with other provinces. But if our entire country is going to have more summers like this one, then, that evaluation may change. And we may need to know that we have the resources in our province when we need them to respond quickly. So I'm hoping that that's something that we're going to continue to look at in a really active way, and certainly we'll be encouraging that conversation.
All right, travel restrictions, wood bans. Is this something that's sustainable, do you think, for potentially years to come if this is the new norm?
Well, I think we're going to have to figure out a new way of communicating those restrictions and the rationale behind them, and for people to have some sense of how those things roll out. So again, it's likely that we're going to have another experience like this. I think, it's absolutely imperative, and I want to be clear with your listeners. We need to stay out of the woods right now. There are dozens of fires, every couple of days that are, sparking up and being put out. So there's no question that right now our province is a tinderbox. But I am sympathetic to folks who were really surprised by the blanket fire ban that came in that, when we hadn't heard any restriction prior. So I think we're just going to have to work on communication. So as the province gets dry, and if we're in a situation like this, so that people understand what might be coming, so that businesses who work in the woods might have time to plan, so that people who are on wells, many of which are dry around the province right now, might have more time to think about, acquiring some water and how they're going to adapt to that. So really, I think it's all about communication and making sure people know and understand that the restrictions are going to come and what they're going to mean.
All right. Before we run out of time, I want to talk to you about healthcare. Later in the show, I'll be chatting with Karen Oldfield, the Nova Scotia Health Interim President and CEO. Anyway, you feel as though that Nova Scotians deserve more information, deserve more answers when it comes to healthcare. Why do you say that?
Well, because we have so many people across this province who still don't have primary care in a meaningful way and who live in communities with very little access to emergency care. So we have emergency rooms that are closed far too often. And we have so many people. I mean, Todd, every week I talk to people who tell me they've been on the wait list for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. And so, we're happy when those numbers move in a positive direction, but we need to understand what's behind the numbers to actually know if we're making progress. So we have so much less information than we did before. And that means, our numbers going down because people are moving, because we know that that's the case. Are they really being attached to care? We, have only really seen in the last few months the numbers coming off the list. We also need to know who's being added. And that's so that, certainly for us as representatives of our community, so that we can understand what's happening on the ground in our community, and so that we can advocate for the resources that are needed, and so that Nova Scotians across this province have some certainty that they're going to have the medical care that they're entitled to under the Canada Health Act. And so, we're happy to see some progress being made, but it's just not fast enough. This government was elected 5 years ago to fix healthcare. And you and I have talked about this many times, but from my perspective, fixing healthcare means that everyone has meaningful attachment to primary care. That has to be the first thing, because then you can deal with those referrals to specialists. You can deal with all kinds of things, and you can really make sure that people get less sick earlier on. And that goes to quality of life. That goes to all kinds of things, ways that we can live. So I think we continue to have questions about, this government is really great at trumpeting their accomplishments. Right before the last election, everyone got a novel in the mail about how great healthcare is. But that doesn't square up with the experience of thousands of Nova Scotians. And so I think they owe it to Nova Scotians to tell them what they're doing and that they're working hard, and also to let folks know how far we have to go so that we can all pitch in to, come up with those solutions and to make sure that they happen in a timely way.
Right, healthcare homes and that concept, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is something, New Democrats brought in collaborative emergency centers 15 years ago. And I think this is an extension of that. So this is a model that we have always championed that is absolutely the gold standard of how primary care needs to be delivered. But again, I think, when the province talks about healthcare homes, they're going to tell you that there's, 100 or something like that. And I think we have to be really clear about what that definition is. I think if we're talking about a collaborative care clinic or what they're now calling a healthcare home, that needs to mean that there really is a collaborative team there. So there's physicians and nurse practitioners and sometimes, physiotherapists or dietitians or pharmacists. There's all kinds of different folks, nurses, so that people can see the healthcare practitioner that's most appropriate, and they're attached to a team. If they need to see a doctor, they see a doctor. But if they don't, then they don't have to. But they still know that they can get that healthcare in a regular way. We have some of those that are being built out. We're really excited to see that, but we need a whole lot more.
Claudia, appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, take care. Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP and official opposition here in Nova Scotia. What is on your mind today? We've got an open hour. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. When it comes to travel measures, wood bans, are they here to stay, folks? Is this something that we're going to be dealing with for years to come if this type of weather is the new norm? And if so, what are your thoughts on that? How sustainable is that? How willing are you to comply with measures like this for if, in fact, it is extended and years go on and summers go on and this is the new norm? What are your thoughts on that or whatever else you've got in your mind? Again, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back.
Facts.
All right, so taking your calls, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's get right to it. Talk to Judy, who's a first-time caller. Judy, hello.
Yes, hi, Todd. Good morning.
Hi.
I wanted to talk to you for a moment, if I could, about the wildfires and specifically one significant impact that the recent fires have had that is often ignored or not even realized at times, and that's the impact on the animals and birds that live in affected areas.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and we always speak of the impacts of the wildfires on people, the stress of being evacuated, the devastation of losing your home, and the risk of injury or even death. And it struck me these same impacts are true for wildlife as well. And in fact, when we stop to think of it, the impacts for them are often worse. Many animals and birds are unable to evacuate, particularly at this time of year when there's many newborn and young birds and animals. They're inevitably trapped and they will perish in the fire. And those animals and birds who do evacuate have no home to go back to. Their home is simply gone, and they are thrust into a strange environment that may not be suitable for sustaining their life. And many who do escape the fire still end up dying. And I saw a heartbreaking example of this yesterday while driving on Washmill in Bears Lake. There was a young fawn, a baby deer, who was likely no more than several weeks old, and he was running along the street all alone and clearly panicked. And his mama likely perished in the fire or got run over by a car. I saw him race up the hill only to end up on the 102, where we can readily assume his fate. So I really hope that when we think about the devastation caused by these wildfires, and often by our carelessness, that we remember we're not the only ones that are impacted. That's what I wanted to share, Todd.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not like you can explain it to the animal either. At least as human beings, you can explain what's going on, and there's some communication. But to the animal, it's just they simply are bewildered and confused.
Correct. Yeah, it's a terrible outcome for many.
Yeah, for sure. Well said. Thank you, Judy. It's a great point.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. Barry, hello.
Hello. People hope they realize that this isn't the worst it's going to get.
climate change hasn't stopped. It's continuing. It's evolving, which means this isn't the worst drought we're going to have if we keep along this path.
Yeah.
And if we're scared about being in the woods now, how about when it's even worse? If you check between the 70s and 80s, the world averaged about 35 to 40 catastrophes a year. Now we're up to about 150 and 160.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 30, 40 years from now, how many are we going to evolve into if we don't do something about this?
Well, you say do something about it. What does that look like? What does do something about it look like to you, Barry?
Well, first off, the scientists weren't crackpots. What's going on outside kind of shows that they knew what they were talking about. But a lot of people didn't pay attention to a lot of their recommendations. There are tree huggers and all these nutcases and everything else. At what stage do we finally realize that maybe they're telling the truth, and maybe we ought to listening to try to slow this down? I don't think we can ever go back.
No.
Maybe we can stop it from getting worse, because if we don't, it's going to get a whole lot worse.
Yeah. So
it really is. I mean, the days of arguing about it's like we argued about smoking.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't real until well past what it should have been.
Yeah.
And we've reached that stage now with climate change. I think it's a time to, the state's denying it, which is really scary because they're a large industrial country. But you can't keep going this. It's going to get worse. And by the way, if it's scary being in the woods now, how about if it's 10 times drier than that? If our average years get that much worse.
Yeah, I guess, Barry, my response would be that if in fact we are now seeing the results of man-made climate change, and if it's happening now, and we've already gone down that road, how much would we have to do in order to stem that? I just don't know where that tipping point would be, and how do you bring that back, and how many years of change if in fact globally we had massive change across the board, including from Russia, including from China, including from India, including from the United States, and all these big massive countries and huge emitters. I'm just curious how much change would be needed in order to change that.
I wish I knew too, but there's things people don't realize. People think the science is stuck still. It's not. Like arguing about electric cars, they're going to be the same way they are now. I've seen a world where a person could take a car to work, an electric car, on a sunny day, and come home and inject the extra that his car picked up from the sun, and we don't have to use fossil fuels. I mean, there'll be a day where we can operate with windmills, solar, and everything else that we probably can cut back there. We can cut back on pollution. And maybe we're expecting too much. We're motivated by greed.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
That's part of the problem.
Well, no, we're not only motivated by greed, but we're motivated by convenience. And I think that as individuals, if individuals would have an honest conversation with you, they would tell you that generally people who have air conditioning on, and generally people who want to travel will travel, and people who generally want to buy things, who have the economic output to do so, will buy things. I think individually people are on board with what you're saying, but when the rubber meets the road, pun intended, people don't walk the walk generally.
Think of it, we still have a major cruise ship industry.
Exactly.
6,000 people. They fill up with bunker from the time they come in until the next one's go. If you do cruises, they come in 7 a.m. They got a line hooked up. Well, exactly. And it runs till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon before they leave.
That's exactly right. And then the environmental waste and all that goes with it, with the crew. So that's the point, Barry, is that people talk a big game saying they want change, and yet when Halifax rolls out its economic output and the tourism industry, it brags about how many cruise ships it gets into dock every summer. So it's a whole lot of hypocrisy, in my opinion.
You're 100% right, and the sad part is, unless it changes overnight, like they forecasted, then the next day we have droughts everywhere.
Yeah.
People don't care because they look out their window. Oh, it's hey, if it's supposed to be climate change, why, if you have a cold day, here it's cold out. Well, where's this global warming? Yeah. They don't know. They don't understand what global warming is. It's that if you take all the temperatures in the world over the whole year, each year, it's higher. That's what global warming is. It does. Tomorrow, if it's, we set a new record for cold or something. Yeah. That does not change global warming.
Right.
People in their mind will sometimes think that, but they don't really want to believe it.
Right. Okay, Barry, appreciate the call. Thanks. 902-405-6000. John, hello.
Hello, Todd.
Hi there.
I really am thankful for that lady that just called and talked about those poor animals that live in the woods, the deer, the raccoons, and the birds that are probably dying and have no place to go. I think that's a great thing that she brought that up, that we should be aware of the animals that live in the woods. And I think what would be a great idea, too, maybe you might disagree with me, and a lot of people might disagree, but I think no matter, even when this is over, I think anybody that goes walking in the woods at any time, there should be a ban that cigarettes are not allowed to be smoked in the woods at all, no matter when. Because people are neglectful when they do flick their cigarettes away. And I'm not saying that cigarettes are the cause of the fires, but let's, in the future, prevent this from happening by putting a ban on smoking in the woods. The other thing I want to mention, too, I was very annoyed when I heard the news yesterday saying that one of the golf courses are allowing people to smoke their cigarettes where they wash their ball. They're still in the woods, for God's sake. How ridiculous is that kind of a rule to make in a golf course? Right now, I think golf courses should be closed right now until this fire hazard is over. Anyway, that's my opinion for today, Todd.
Okay, John, appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. Look, when it comes to golf courses, we all know that to his point, to the caller's point, that golf courses are deep into forests in many instances, and cart paths go right along that forest line often. And we all know that many golfers like to smoke cigars and cigarettes and in some cases cannabis. And it seems to me, again, a double standard here. If you're going to close trails to biking and walking, then why are we allowing people to be on golf courses? I think it's a double standard. And again, a mixed message, and it's part of why people are frustrated with this. 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. Right, continuing with your calls, the way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. John, hello.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm well. You?
Not too bad. Today's my birthday, so I had a call from a long-time friend in Newfoundland. And I won't go on into all the details. If you'd like to call me back later on, because I wouldn't want to put it on all of it on the air. It just might make people, use it. Anyway, glass is being used to start the fires in Newfoundland. Or some of them anyway, and how they're doing it. People are really not well to go to the extremes of what they're doing to set some of these fires. So that's it about the fires. We did have a nice little bit of rain last night. And Todd, listening to the show over the last couple of days in regards to helicopters, planes, water bombers and that, Todd, the Maritimes, as well as a couple of other provinces in this country, does have an aerospace industry. We have Pratt & Whitney, we have IMP here, we got Bombardier, there's aerospace in PEI. So in many, if not all the cases, us, the taxpayers, give large sums of money to these companies on a yearly basis for R&D and to set up base here and employ people with good opportunities. So thinking about Mr. Houston talking, wouldn't it be great if we had a manufacturing plant to produce such aircraft as small or medium or even large size water bombers? We've got all the players that need it here. Canada has all the what is needed to make them. Just as something, this wind power and all the work it's going to generate, and these are long-term jobs that last a very long time. At one time at Pratt & Whitney, where I used to work, we had 350 people working there, receiving good wages. And I think that far outweighs after the startup is over with for wind farms. Because once that stuff is started up, other than maintenance, that's it. It's just a thought. I would like to see some of our great thinkers that we're supposed to have in our higher ranks of our government start thinking ahead, use their imagination, use their connections. In many cases, they have given incredible incentives for these companies to start up and stay. And as I said, the benefits, the employment, I don't think they can be matched by any wind farm. Yes, we do need such things as wind farms and solar and all this, but in long range, and the world, as I understand it, if you need a lead time of 10 years to get a freaking plane, there's a business case right there. Let's get going.
Okay, John, appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Mike, hello.
How you doing, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Good. I just want to talk about this golf course closure you guys are talking about this morning. As far as I know, the vast majority of courses have actually banned smoking on the course now. I belong to a course in the valley, which is basically wide open, and to close that would be, I think, ludicrous. But that's a different opinion. But I guess. But anyway, most courses have banned smoking on the golf course now. So just to make you feel a little better, I suppose.
Yeah, no, and I get that, but again, you could ban smoking on trails as well, but people will still smoke on trails, right? So it's just, I guess. And Mike, when it comes to, listen, I love golf, and look, I'm the first to not want to see golf courses closed. Believe me. But I think that it's a bit of a mixed message when it comes to the public when they're told you can't walk on a trail in HRM, which is barely wooded at all, just or along a beach, along the ocean or whatever. Yet you can get on a golf cart and go deep into the woods for 18 holes, depending on the course. Obviously, some are wide open. But I think that's a bit of a mixed message, Mike. That's all my point is.
Well, I mean, when they ban smoking on a golf course, there's etiquette on a golf course. The guy behind you is going to say, "You can't smoke over here." There's a difference. In the past, you could be anywhere by yourself. I get the point, but honestly, I think it's kind of ludicrous. But anyway.
Okay, Mike. But I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Take care. All right, 902-405-6000. Look, folks. Again, I don't want to see anything closed, obviously. But look, if we're going to close trails, in particular trails in HRM or any municipality, which are in some cases paved trails with almost no woods surrounding them, and we're told that we have to do this for the greater good of the province, then why are we allowing people to jump on golf carts and go deep into the woods for 18 holes and drink and let's face it, folks, people are going to smoke. Let's be realistic about that. You telling me that golfers drinking all day aren't going to be smoking out there? Come on. That's not realistic. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. Continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Again, 902-405-6000. Andrea's giving us a call. Hello, Andrea.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to call in about the golf course situation.
Sure.
callers and stuff are persecuting golf courses for being allowed to go there and go golfing. But yet nobody is talking about Entree and Windsor. That's completely in the forest. That's allowed to operate right now. And Ski Wentworth has bike trails on trail lifts. That's allowed to operate right now. I mean, these are businesses. And I mean, they all of these businesses have strict policies. And you're signing your name in. So if you're on there smoking or not following the rules, because all of these places now have strict rules in place, then you're going to be held accountable. Like, are we basically not going to be allowed to do anything now?
No, I didn't say that, Andrea. I said that I can see why some people would be frustrated when they're told that you can't be on a trail, yet golf courses and Entree and other businesses are allowed to operate. I can see.
Right?
Well, they're a business. So they're a business. So that means that they should be able to operate. I mean, is the risk? I mean, that's the point. That if the risk is there, and we're told stay out of the woods, yet we're allowing businesses to operate and have people in the woods, then I think that's a mixed message that the government is sending. That's all I'm saying.
100%, because there's nothing wrong with walking in the woods. There's nothing wrong. And anybody, it doesn't matter whether you're a smoker or not, anybody can be irresponsible. And to solely blame, like, everybody's like smokers. You're like, they're placing every smoker into this pool that they're all irresponsible people. Many smokers are not irresponsible people. The fire that started in Susie Lake, that was a pit fire. Was that person a smoker, or was that just a regular person who started it? We don't know, right?
Yeah.
I could go in Point Pleasant Park today, walk down that trail that's open. I'm not a smoker. What if I started a fire? What if I just took something? You know what I mean? Let's look at construction sites. A fire started in HRM the other day because of a construction site. Look at a lot of construction workers. They're always there. I see them all. I'm not saying all of them, but they're smokers. Are we saying they're all irresponsible too? Their equipment started a fire, so are we going to stop construction equipment? I agree with you. Like, we need to start thinking of different ways to deal with this instead of like doing this blanket, everything is banned, you can't do anything. Because we're basically blaming everything that's going on a few irresponsible individuals, and everybody else has to suffer for it, which is really unfortunate. It's like, close everything down. Like, we can't close everything down. That's ridiculous.
Okay, Andrew, appreciate your comments. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Take care. 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Hi, Todd. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on your earlier caller about the effect of wildfires on animals, and just talk about the effect of the drought on animals. I was down at Point Pleasant Park last week for the Shakespeare by the Sea, and I was just hanging out on the shoreline, and there's this squirrel, like, he was following me around. It was really weird, but yeah, it was almost like he was drunk. He was just really weak, flopping around and stuff. So I poured some water on sort of a flat rock, and he just lapped it up like, he couldn't get enough kind of thing. And I mean, I did see other squirrels sort of seemingly healthy and running around and stuff. So maybe it was something particular going on with that squirrel. I don't know. But you got to imagine, like, when normally any other time of year, there's sort of pools, there's puddles, there's water collects on rocks. There's always, stuff for animals to drink. But I mean, yeah, for all the birds and, little furry creatures and stuff, there's not much around. So yeah, in my backyard for the first time this summer, I just put a few of those little white takeout round containers because they're sort of the perfect depth for a bird bath, and they could sort of perch on the edge and stuff like that. And yeah, they've been making great use of it. They just sort of love flying down, splashing around, have a good old time, take off, come back a few hours later and stuff. So I mean, yeah, I don't know, maybe the HRM could do stuff, sort of design, little catchments or even sort of active sort of water sources for, animals, especially like the birds and squirrels and stuff like that. But, just at home as well, too, like, try to put out more bird baths and stuff, and at least just for those couple dry months, maybe sort of help them out. And in this case, too, it's not just the birds that are using it. There's a lot of like insects and stuff like that, bees and whatnot, sort of hanging out and seeming to enjoy the water as well, too. So, yeah, it's definitely going to put a lot of hardship on the animal and bird life for sure.
Hey, David, thanks as always, pal.
Right on. Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Sean, hello.
Hey, how you doing today, Todd?
Well, you?
Great, thank you. I'm an old fireman I was a fireman for over 16 years, and the way the weather is now and everything is so dry, everything should be shut down for a month or so until we start getting rain. And no offense to the people that are complaining that we should be allowed in there, put some fire gear on. think about the firemen that have to go in and fight that. Put some fireman gear on, the bunker gear, the Scott Air Pack, go into a sauna, for an example, and see what they got to go through. So that's just my opinion of it. Sorry.
It's okay. No, I'll listen. It's all about opinion, Sean. No apologies needed.
Yeah, it's just nobody's thinking about the poor firemen going in there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. Sean, hello.
Hey, Todd. Todd, I just want to take a step back here. Tim Houston, I think, is very incompetent, and he's showing that in a lot of ways right now. He's deciding to lock people down instead of deal with the issue and bring in the stuff we need. This stuff, if you did this exactly what the Constitution guy there you had on from that's going after suing them or whatever, he said if you tried to do this in any other province, you would never fly. And I'll give you an example because I lived it. I lived in Alberta when the Fort Mac fires took place. Wildfires out there, when you live out there, it is a common thing. It's like hurricanes in Florida. It happens. You equip your firefighters with what they need, and they do the job, and people still, but we never were locked down for months on end or banned from the woods or none of this stuff because it wouldn't have flown with the people. The people out there understood that wildfires happen. People are obviously mentally unwell, like the caller previous about the glasses. Are we going to ban people from wearing glasses in the woods, like on public trails? Because they could be, obviously they start fires, right? So it goes like they say this is the new normal. Well, it is the new normal, maybe. We don't know that for sure. If people keep starting random fires, it could be. But if it is, shouldn't we equip ourselves for it instead of saying, no, we'll just lock down and we don't need that stuff? Because I can attest for it. I've seen it happen. I've been evacuated out of places in northern Alberta because of wildfires. And some of these wildfires that start are almost immediately put out because they have the resources and the equipment, and they arm their personnel with the proper equipment to get in there and deal with it. So for him to say that, that's very incompetent governing, and we should be doing everything. We have all these callers that call in with great ideas, and they're kind of inexpensive. Baskets for helicopters. We have a military base loaded with helicopters. Yeah. Easy. Seems very simple to do. You go back, these new normals and these restrictions are no different than the COVID ones, Todd. We're comparing the golf courses being open. Look at when COVID happened. The golf courses were still, we weren't allowed to go to stores or mingle with people, and only were allowed, but the golf courses were open, and you could back up on the 18th or 17th hole with 10 other strangers waiting to tee off that you didn't know and mix around, drink, pass cannabis around, but they were still wide open. They weren't banned. So it's the same thing, and that's why people will get tired of these restrictions, and they will start to fight back because they don't make sense.
Okay, Sean, appreciate the call.
That's it.
All right, take care.
Thanks,
all right, 902-405-6000. Again, this is what it's about, folks. It's about opinion. Ryan, hello.
Hi, Todd. Happy Friday.
You indeed.
Yeah, so I just want to start with a quote, and it's from one of the founding fathers down to the south. It's Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Canada is on a very bad track, and the Maritimes, I'm sad to say, are leading the way towards whatever cliff face we're about to run over. And a lot of people do not understand the notion of precedence when it comes to things like this. And I say, of course, the people who are supporting these sort of illegal, it's not even an order. I don't know if you've looked at the signs, but it's a proclamation, which I've never seen a minister issue a proclamation before. It's usually a ministerial order, so maybe think about that. But what the people who support this don't understand is there's a boomerang effect to setting precedent. It will come back on you. You might like what this government's doing, but the next government might not be one you like, and they might use this very same precedent to lock you inside your house, lock you from places you want to go because of whatever reason that affects public safety. It's this is not a sufficient reason. What we've done in the past has always been public education campaigns. We've done additional signage. We've had additional DNR patrols, things like that, where, we're increasing our surveillance, we're increasing our education of the public, but we're not restricting the movement of people, and we're not restricting essential liberties. And mobility through the province, especially public lands, is an essential liberty. It's an essential freedom that's protected by the Charter, and there has been no justification here that everyone should be banned from the woods when we know for a fact it's a small group of people who are doing this. A lot of it's deliberate arson, probably by climate justice, eco-terrorists.
No, Ryan. Let's not go down that road. That's complete conspiracy theory.
It's been in the news, Todd.
See you later. 9025. Look, I'm willing to entertain thoughts, but when you're telling us that eco-justice people are out intentionally starting fires, that's a non-starter for me. I'm sorry. It just is. That's a bridge too far. I'm willing to have the conversation and have opinions, but that is completely out there. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Brian, hello.
Hey, Todd. How are you?
I'm well. You?
Oh, pretty good. Yes, I sort of agreed with the last guy until he got to the end of his little speech there. But, our liberties have been taken away from us. And but I also like to say, well, we have a nice base down in Greenwood there where we could keep a few of these water bombers, maybe even have them manned by the Army, and actually start training people in our armed forces to fight fires instead of going to war, and keep the water bombers there, and they can be up here in a matter of like 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's an idea I think the government should look at and maybe go down that road.
Well, look, I think that perhaps being a larger component to the Air Force and what they do, this idea has been floated around quite a bit, actually, that Air Force pilots could be trained on this type of delivery of water. I think it's worthy of discussing for sure, Brian. So I think that at this point we need to explore all options at this point.
Yeah, well, they should have built a few water bombers after the last fire.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Appreciate the call.
Great talking.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Nick, hello.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Well, you?
Doing well. I'm just wondering, that lady you had on there this morning talking about better communication, was she referencing the years to come and more restrictions? Is that kind of what I was getting at?
Which lady are we talking about?
It was at 1047.
Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP?
That's who it was.
Yeah.
Just from the language she was using seems to me that we're going to be continuing on with these restrictions year after year. And I think, I agree with them boys on the Charter. But what I wonder, can we hold these politicians accountable for, say, negligence? If they know we need certain infrastructure and equipment, we're not getting it. Emergency arises where we do got to, I'm not agreeing with the woods ban, but, we got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And can we hold these guys accountable? And what I'm wondering is, during the Shelburne fire, they had family down there loading bulldozers, equipment. And he said it was terribly, terribly unorganized. Like, they had spot fires, and they just say leave them for the morning, and then they jump the break. And I'm starting to wonder, maybe we should have a bit more investigations, third parties, looking into where this money and where these things are headed, because I don't want to be going into another restriction next year. I'm kind of getting tired of all this. Just wondering your thoughts.
Well, as far as holding them accountable, I guess that's what elections are for, right? But here's the problem: is that governments in the past have kicked us down the road and not dealt with getting water bombers. The Liberals, the NDP, now the PCs here have done the same. So I would say, Nick, probably no. There's no way to hold them accountable, I suppose, other than at election time.
And another thing there, a fellow you had on yesterday, Peter, 29 years experience firefighting. I was listening, he did an interview online there talking about how they offered up almost 200 years of fighting Acadian forest fires and were constantly turned down by this government. And I'm wondering, you know, they're on the news crying for help every day, but yet they turning down some of the best experience we've got. And I'm wondering, is, you know, where West Dalhousie is there. They let that sucker go overnight 2 nights ago. It was 8 hectares. And coincidentally, it seems to be that's near where they want to mine this uranium. And I just, you know, I'm kind of getting curious over here. I'm from New Germany, but I had a fire close to me Round Lake last night. And it seems there's a lot of questions that aren't getting answered. And thank you for your time, Nick, and thank you for letting people talk.
All right. Okay, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Mark, hello.
Oh, hi, Todd. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to basically address sort of the golf course issue first. For me, I mean, I think it's pretty apparent why there'd be less restrictions there. Most of the people that can afford to go there, right? Well-connected people, a lot of politicians. It is a theory. I don't think it's that far of a stretch anyway. On that, you know, it's not usually sort of the common people that are going to these country clubs and golfing, in my opinion. In terms of the restrictions, yeah, I favor some of them for sure. The walking in the woods thing, it's never going to make any sense to me. I just can't get my head around it. So I do think it's a knee-jerk reaction, kind of like, well, you know, from the government's point of view, seems like they think we're stupid. So fine, these people are stupid people. They're ignorant, most of the population. So, you know, they can't be nuanced. So we'll just have a blanket ban. So that's really how I think that they're treating us. They're treating us like kids, and I'm 100% opposed to that.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense.
All right, appreciate the call. Let's talk to Evan. Hello, Evan.
Hey there. How you doing today, Todd?
I'm well, you?
I'm well. Thanks for asking.
Great.
So I just wanted to weigh in on this whole blanket restriction thing because I work in risk mitigation. I've been an insurance professional for 10 years, and one of the big questions I ask is, if you don't have people in the forest to report fires before they become out of control, how are you going to control forest fires?
Yeah. Okay.
So you can't just, you take people out of forest. There's no one walking in the forest. There's no one going in the forest. There's no one camping. Mm-hmm. They're the people who are going to see the fires. They're the people who are going to report the fires before they get out of control. Mm-hmm. And your previous caller there that you disconnected at the end, I think he's barking up the wrong tree as well. But I think there is an argument to be made for the fact that real estate companies and property management companies, when they want to do a development on a certain piece of land, there's a quick and easy way to clear out a big piece of land, and sometimes that's a fire. And there's definitely an argument to be made there for intentional arson and things like that with regards to property development and things like that. So just looking at from a risk mitigation standpoint, not allowing people to go in the woods because you're scared someone's going to start a fire doesn't make a lot of sense when now you don't have anybody in the woods to report the fires. So
okay,
the point I wanted
appreciate
to make.
the call. Thanks. Take care. Dan, hello. Hi, Dan.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm well, you?
Good. So my 2 cents worth regarding some restrictions and areas. Basically, one that you've referred to over the last few days is golf courses being allowed to use their property, and they're forested. They have forested areas to them, and but trails aren't. And so if you asked AI some of that stuff, you end up it kind of hedges on a few points. One, what's it taxed as? So is it taxed as, you know, wooded lands for tree harvesting and for forest? Then it's clearly being banned. But a golf course isn't that. A golf course is something that's being taxed fairly heavily as a business, and it's up to the, according to the AI, it's up to the staff and ownership of the golf course to set internal rules regarding, you know, fires, not to have them, or smoking limited in certain spots, or something like that for people to smoke. And so there was a comment made, well, they can smoke at the tees. Well, that's up to the golf course if they consider that to be away from, a safe there is no sense saying there's a safe spot in a dry period, but there's some safer than others. That's pretty clear. So the golf course management has chosen that to be an area where they'll allow people, well, you might be lined up at a tee or something to sit there and have your cigarette if that's what you do. So, they've made concessions that sound reasonable on face value, but depends what hard line you're taking. If you want to say, well, anybody walking can, somebody mentioned wearing glasses and you can start a fire. I mean, you can get carried away with some of this stuff. What I see is if a property, including a home, you can have a home with like 5 acres and it's got trees on it. Well, does that mean you can't go there because it's got forest? Well, it's not classed as a forest. It's classed as private property that's not made for the harvesting and growing of trees for woodlots. And so that's a point. So when you're going after property to get a determination, that was it. Originally, I thought it was just provincial lands, like crown land, but it's not. It's, private woodlots too. Again, if they're classed as a woodlot, taxed as a woodlot, and for the design of harvesting and growing trees for financial gain, then it's clearly a woodlot and it's clearly banned. But everything else is, kind of not necessarily banned. And so, anyway, that's
okay, Dan.
I think that's helpful.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. We'll open the phone lines again on Monday between 11 and 12. When we come back, a chat with the Nova Scotia Interim President and CEO of Karen Oldfield joins us when we come back.
Thanks.
Karen Oldfield is Nova Scotia Health's interim president and CEO and joins us for a chat on this Friday. Karen, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Nice to chat with you, Todd.
Indeed. Okay, so when it comes to progress with the healthcare models and how healthcare is changing here in Nova Scotia, recently you delivered some comments and say that progress is being made and changes are working, right?
That is correct.
All right, so tell us what these changes are. What are some of the key changes to healthcare?
Sure. Well, what we had a sitting of the Standing Committee on Health at the legislature this week, and so we went to speak on the topic of primary health care, and in particular the waiting list for need a family practice. So that was basically the genesis for the comments, and so we talked a lot about our, I'll say new, but it's really a morphed model of care, which we're calling health homes. So there's been team-based care and collaborative care in the province of Nova Scotia for quite a while, and there'd be a number of clinics that we could point to. For example, the North End Clinic being one that's been team-based care for a long time. The difference between, maybe what started a number of years ago and what we're moving to under the heading of health home is to really put the teams of people together in the various communities that respond best to the needs of that community. So there could be physicians, nurse practitioners, maybe a family practice nurse, maybe a social worker, a dietitian, really any combination that best suits the needs of a particular community. And so we're calling that a health home. So it may not necessarily be a family physician who sees you there. In fact, it could be, as I say, it could be the family practice nurse. It could be a dietitian, depending on the particular need. So the goal is the right care at the right time at the right place. And we're doing that under the heading of health home. So that's part one, building that. And then part two is, what did we do with the list? And so this time last year, we had approximately 165,000 Nova Scotians on that need a family practice list. So we really had to get cracking. It did take a while to actually recruit the people, figure out, how and where we were going to be able to attach these Nova Scotians to practices. And so we're making good progress with that. So in the course of the year, we really started to attack that list in July of 24. So in July of 25, we pretty much cut it in half. So from the 165, I think that earlier in August, we reported 87,000 and change on the list. So going from 16.2% of Nova Scotians on that need a family practice to just over 8%. So we really cut it in half. We're not stopping, of course, until, we get as far as we can, as fast as we can. But I point to that as progress because really it's been phenomenal work on the part of, many teams within the healthcare system and also in community and also on the part of Doctors Nova Scotia, the College of Physicians and Surgeons. It's really been an all-hands-on-deck approach, and I really think it's working.
How do people get assigned to a health home? How does that happen? What's the process?
So what happens is if you're on the list, then the first thing we do is we've been going through a very long process of validation. So ensuring that the names that are on that list either continue to need a provider, whether that's a physician or a nurse practitioner. So A, whether they are still in the province of Nova Scotia, B, whether they need a provider, and then C, what kinds of health needs they may have, because it is possible that there are people on that list who are in, dramatic need of a provider as opposed to perhaps, somebody who needs a provider but is not in urgent need of a provider. So we really kind of triage the list. We've been spending a lot of time with people on these calls. It's not all a phone call. Some of it is done by email. Sometimes people prefer to deal, through an online method. But we identify them and then determine their needs. And then from that, where in their area, where in their community, do we have the capacity to assign them? And then they will eventually get a letter that assigns them to, a provider, which more and more is a member of a health home. So it basically works like that. And I just want to take a moment to say, if you want to check on your status, you can do that. You can do that through calling 811. We also have the Need a Family Practice website. There's a 1-800 number. A lot of people who don't have access to online, methods prefer to call 811, and that certainly is one of the easiest ways to do it, and there would be somebody answering that phone. But for all of those methods, whether it's a 1-800, whether it's the 811, or whether it's an online check, we have a team that backs those calls or those emails, and we'll get back to you to let you know kind of where you are, to check on your health status, if there's been any changes that may cause you to have a more urgent need to be attached in a more expedient manner. And so I just want to make sure I make that point really clear, that there's people there that will hear you. One of the points that came up the other day at the Legislative Committee was, there's people out there who aren't on that list, but they don't have a provider. They don't have a physician or they don't have a nurse practitioner. What are you doing about them? Well, the fact of the matter is, if we don't know, we can't help. So, through you here, Todd, I'm imploring people that if you're not on the list and you should be on the list, call that 811 or go online and put yourself and or your family on that list.
Okay, how do people coordinate when it comes to who they see and who coordinates that? Like you mentioned, you may see a dietitian or you may see you may not see the doctor. Who makes that decision?
That's all done at the clinic. So there would be care coordinators who would facilitate that, and so you don't have to worry about that part. You just have to show up at your appointed time and that will all be taken care of for you. So not your issue, that's for sure.
Right. Okay, so when it comes to recruiting people to work in these health homes, what's that been?
What's that look like?
Yeah.
What's that look like? Well, it's part of what drives the move to collaborative care or team-based care, health home model is that clinicians, whether they are a physician or a nurse practitioner or any of the others that I mentioned, they really want to work in a team-based environment as opposed to maybe being a solo practitioner. So as new students, whatever discipline, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, etc., they kind of go through school working in teams. And so they like that. And it's nice when you can double check, verify, have somebody at your, down the hall that you can talk to and just validate what you're thinking. So they kind of go through school learning that way. And so the health home model is a way to facilitate and continue that metamorphosis. So they like it, and we're trying to respond to it. And it's kind of if I look across the country, it would be a best practice standard of care. So, more and more provinces are moving to models or some kind of a team-based approach, so that the physician, who's sort of at the top of the pyramid, if you like, but if it's something that any other person can handle within that practice, then it makes perfect sense for the other person, the other practitioner, to see that person. And so reserving the physician's time to its highest and best use, if I could put it that way. So they don't have to see everybody if they can see the most important people that totally use, not the most important people, but the person, the
most
patient
appropriate people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Who needs the kind of care that physician went to school to learn and provide.
Right.
Like, that's really what we're doing, putting people together with different scopes and enable them to practice at the top of their scope. That's what we call it.
Okay. And lastly, you introduced longitudinal family medicine, or LFM, payment model in 2023, which was designed to increase salaries for family doctors. How is that working, or what feedback have you received on that?
Well, thanks for raising that, because we actually have received fantastic feedback. So it's a big mouthful, longitudinal family medicine. But basically what it means, if you think of longitude, it means being able to follow somebody. And so sometimes in healthcare they call that, cradle to grave. But to follow them through their health journey is really what that means. And so we worked very closely with Doctors Nova Scotia to create something that would be unique to Nova Scotia, serve the kinds of needs and supports and desires of the family practitioner, and yet and Nova Scotians as well. So, for example, one of the things that we tried to do was provide more access on nights and weekends. So you see more patients, you get paid more. It's that simple. And so there are many physicians who really like that model, and we've offered physicians in the province. So there's really two models of payment. You could be a fee-for-service physician, and they've been offered the opportunity to convert to an LFM model. And, more and more physicians are choosing the LFM model versus a fee-for-service. So we know it's working. And what we're seeing from our side of the house is a greatly increased number of appointments, both at night and on weekends. So that helps the patient. That helps the Nova Scotian, especially the person who perhaps works during the day and just can't get to a physician's office.
Okay, Karen, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this. Good chat. Let's do it again.
All right. Have a good weekend.
All right.
One thing, shout out to the firefighters and also to those who have been displaced. And a shout out to our healthcare teams that really worked hard at Bayers Lake this week. So, my thoughts and prayers are with all Nova Scotians who are caught up in this.
For sure. Thanks, Karen.
All righty.
All right, take care. Karen Oldfield, Nova Scotia's Health Interim President and CEO. Clinton Wilkins when we come back. Right, we're on the cusp of a weekend, and not just a regular weekend, folks. A Mortgage 101 weekend. That's right, Mortgage 101, your guide to home ownership with Clinton Wilkins and myself, Todd Veinotte, airs on our radio station Saturday and Sunday, 11 till noon on both days. And Clinton Wilkins joins me here in studio to tee it up, if you will. Clinton, thanks for coming in.
Happy Friday, Todd.
Happy Friday.
How was your week?
It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was busy for me.
Yeah.
You know, I think I always say it's always busy, but, you know, that's just the nature of this business, I think.
That's right. And adding to your workload was recording Mortgage 101.
I know. That's one of my highlights for the month. You know, I think it's just we get to do the show, and we've been able to do, like, we're so privileged to be able to do this for so many years.
Yeah.
And, you know, every time we come up with something new to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's between what's happening from a regulatory standpoint, what's going on with the federal government, what's going on with inflation, interest rates, jobs, you know, what's going on with home ownership in general, what's going on in the market here in Halifax. There's just an endless amount of things that we could talk about.
Yeah, well, it's like a sports game, right? A baseball game is, you would think, how much can you talk about baseball? But each game's different.
Every game is 100% different.
Right.
And I think sometimes people ask us, like, what's the makeup of this show?
Mm.
You know, do we just talk about mortgage lending for an hour straight? I mean, that could be boring.
No, we do not.
We talk about so many different things. I would say maybe 50% of what we talk about is mortgage lending. And sometimes we do technical stuff. Sometimes we talk about credit, income, assets. We talk about things that are involved with mortgage lending. But the other half is sometimes politics.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, you know, real estate. Sometimes we talk about, like, home insurance.
Yeah. Or talk about your trajectory as a business owner.
Yeah, we talk about small business.
Right, that's right.
And we talk about relationships. Like, you know, there's so many things that we touch on. I think it makes it very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've had feedback from listeners over the years. And believe it or not, we have a lot of listeners that tune in that don't own a home or maybe own a home and haven't had a mortgage and are not planning on getting a mortgage. But, you know, they think of something to be like, oh, my kid could use this information or my neighbor could use this information. Yeah. We just talk about so many different things.
Yeah, and of course, and we talk a lot about real estate in general and realtor from a kind of, you're not a realtor, but you know a lot of tons of realtors.
And when we talk a lot about real estate, and I mean, it's kind of I'm not going to say it's a new fad. Obviously, people love home ownership. Canadians love it. But even if you turn on to Netflix, and there's shows about real estate now, and, you know, we're talking more and more about mortgage lending. It's in the news. So, you know, I think we're right here in the right spot. And, you know, I love doing the show, and I love just providing that education piece.
Yeah. Another book in the works for you?
I know. Maybe I'll tease another book. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready quite yet. When I did this last one, it was before things got really, really wild with the marketplace. And, you know, 2020 until today, I probably never worked harder in my life. And I'm going on doing this like almost 21 years. I love mortgage lending more today than I did when I first started back in like 2005. So it's hard to believe that I'm coming up on 21 years here next year. And, you know, I really, really, truly do love it. And I think the reason that for me, I love it so much and that it's been so sustainable for me and we've had like such good growth is we really provide, and we really think that we providing value is more important than the money. For me, I never chase the dollar, and I would not do a transaction if that transaction didn't make sense. It's really, for me, it's most important about providing value. And it's the relationships. Like for me, in our practice, about 60% of the customers that we deal with every day are repeat.
Right.
So I think that does say something.
Well, for sure. And look, Halifax is a big city, but it's not Toronto. And it doesn't, and it's not pretending to be, it doesn't want to be, right?
And I would never want to even do business, nothing against Ontario and Toronto, like my family there. But, you know, I think that we are in a unique place here in Halifax that it's a big enough city that we have access to a lot of, you know, different things, culture, you know, it's a great place to do business, but it's also small enough that, you know, we can build something up that can actually be effective as well.
Yeah. That's what the point it's getting to, kind of a small town approach you guys take, right?
Again, I think it's the best of both worlds, Todd. And, you know, I think it's really hard. It's a hard balance. And in any small business, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are self-employed people, more and more Canadians are becoming self-employed every day. Self-employment is tough. And, you know, I think that we have that empathy. I live it every day, and I know. And it's a balance. But I think that we bring that to our show, and, you know, we bring these themes throughout the season that we're doing this.
Yeah, and like you said, we do get into some educational components as we do each and every week.
Mm-hmm.
And this week, I think we had a pretty good chat on refinance, right?
We definitely did, and we really talk about refinancing in the summer. Like, why would somebody want to refinance now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is now a good time to do it? And we talk about what does a refinance look like? And I always tell customers, and they ask me is now a good time? Is now a good time to do a transaction? And I always tell them the right time is the right time for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people will choose to do a refinance or change lenders at renewal, which that's great. No penalty. But that it doesn't always make the most sense for different customers. Doing transactions at different parts of the life cycle of their mortgage makes sense for a variety of reasons. It may be, paying out unsecured debts. As we know, Canadians are at an all-time high level of indebtedness.
Yeah.
It could be renovations. It could be we have people refinancing their mortgages to pull equity out to give a gift to their kids to get their kids into a home. So there's a variety of reasons why people do it. And we talk a little bit about what a mechanics of mortgage lending looks like and refinancing looks like.
And you talk about the fact that, again, it speaks to if it's right for you. A lot of teachers are off in the summer, so it's a great time for them, right?
Dealing with
a
huge amount of teachers right now, and we love it. And I think there's been times where, teachers are like, okay, we just don't know where we're going to go to. Are we going to the credit union? Who's going to be able to give us the advice? And I find normally in our business, when you deal with one group, you deal with a lot. Like I would venture to say almost 30% of our customers, for example, are D&D. We live in a pretty military heavy area here in Halifax, good jobs. And, we can get a 2-year average. It's the same thing with teachers. But we can understand when we're doing these types of transactions, just like self-employed, when you're doing a lot of these transactions, Todd, you can understand what the needs are.
Yeah.
Right. And we can see what the trends, and then we can apply that to be able to give that best advice. And that's where I think it's important, dealing with someone who's doing a lot of business, because we really try to focus on giving a very good and fair price. Are we always going to be the lowest? No, because someone's always going to do it cheaper. Always someone's going to do it cheaper. But we really do think that we're very, very competitive. We can also take that market knowledge and just over the mass amount of transactions that we're going to do and apply that to our customers. Like this year, I think we're going to do somewhere like 1,800 transactions.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I would have been a good mortgage broker, perhaps, maybe.
I think so, and you have some finance background.
I have some finance background. I mean, maybe in another life I'll do it.
You never know. you never know. We're always looking for the right talent, and we've grown our team slowly, Todd.
Yeah.
And for me, I would rather have the right fit on our team than just about money. There's been people that they haven't worked out on our team for a variety of reasons. But we've always made the choice to protect the culture over money.
Right.
And you know what? The money always comes. And that's what I always think. And it has. It's hard sometimes when you're in the thick of things to be like, okay, am I going to be able to give up these transactions? Because, it hurts the bottom line at the end of the day. Yeah. But I'd rather a customer get the same advice from anyone on the team as if they would get from me.
Right.
That's really what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mortgage 101, it airs Saturday and Sunday, 11 o'clock till noon. And if you miss it, you can get it online, right?
You can definitely get it online. Anywhere where you're getting your podcast, you can get it. You can get it on Apple Music. You can get it on Spotify. You can listen to it on the News 95.7 website, News Radio website, as well as on our website at teamclinton.ca/radio. Hundreds of blog posts. You can see what Todd and I look like. We also do it as a video, and we're on all those social media platforms too, where you want to find us.
And we're damn handsome.
I think we don't look that bad, especially on a Friday.
All right, Clinton. Appreciate it, pal. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Todd. Have a great weekend.
Okay, you as well. Clinton Wilkins. And again, Mortgage 101. It's on our radio station, 11 till noon, Saturday and Sunday. Check it out online if you miss it. Allister Aalders in sports when we come back.
Veinotte.
All right, there you heard it. Allister Aalders, our weather specialist, joins us. Allister, we got nothing to talk about. Really, nothing's happening at all, is there?
I feel like we could have a full hour to talk about everything that's been going on the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, tell us about what some of the data is. Let's get down to some data when it comes to the drought conditions here in Nova Scotia. What is going on?
Yeah, well, we talked about this, earlier in the week when I was on. We've just been under this ridge of high pressure that's just deflecting most of the rain to our north and our south, and it's just it's been great to see the sunshine, but we need a bit of rain, and the pattern just has not let up. So, obviously in the summertime, we see less rainfall. It becomes more convective. So that's a result of convection. The rising of air becomes very localized. We've talked about this before. We don't get the more widespread, longer lasting, heavier rains that we typically see, say, late fall through the spring. And really the last time we had anything that was super beneficial was, in June. I mean, we've had some events, if you will, where we've had some decent amounts from some localized showers that were enhanced by either some downpours or some tropical moisture. But again, that's very localized. And as a result, with just showers and no real rainfall, we are in a huge rainfall deficit. We had some showers last night, very welcome. But when I looked at the stats this morning, most of HRM only had, a few spits to locally 5 millimeters of rain. Parts of the province did have 20 to 50 plus millimeters. There were some pockets around Truro and in parts of Cape Breton where they did get into some very heavy downpours. But again, that was very localized. So this is the problem we're facing, is that when these showers move through, it's not a widespread coverage. It's just very, very hit or miss, and the intensity varies over small distances. So, we talked about earlier, June was the driest on record at Halifax, Stanfield. July was the driest since 1997 and the fourth driest on record, again at Stanfield. But the city itself has been dry too. And then to date, tacking on the few millimeters we had last night, we've had 5 to maybe at best 10 millimeters in HRM. So it's just been incredibly, incredibly dry, to date. We're in the, at Stanfield, so inland locations at, the 85 to 90 millimeter range, from June 1st to now. And at Shearwater, it's likely closer to about 120, 125. But I mean, the seasonal average from June 1st to the end of August is between about 260 and 295 millimeters of rain. So we're in a huge deficit. I mean, well less than 100 150 millimeters less than what that's the deficit we're in right now. Some places have had less than 40% of their seasonal rain to date, and as I mentioned, it's just been this very stubborn ridge of high pressure, in part driven by the Bermuda High, which has been parked a bit farther north. Like, it wobbles, right? It's a semi-permanent high, so it wobbles around, but it's been a bit farther north this year, and it's just been stuck there. We've had some high pressure in that ridge extending into parts of the southern and eastern U.S., so it just creates this ridge where, as I said, the rain gets deflected. It hasn't been able to really break. It sends all the systems to our north, and all we seem to manage is, the trough line or the frontal boundary with the system. And that's not what we need. We need the center of the low to move through to get a more beneficial rain, and that hasn't happened. And I still don't really see that happening in at least through the end of the month. Wow. And then I worry about, does this continue into the fall? Because obviously the fall is a season of change where September can usually be pretty nice. And then usually by, October, November, we're starting to get into those fall storms. But look at last year where we had less fall storms than normal, and we were in a drought last fall. So, I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because obviously the pattern can and it will eventually have to break, and it could break, certainly for September or October. But, it's obviously concerning. At this point, we're in such a deficit. We have so much to make up for before the ground freezes for the winter, and then we're, obviously we're getting really into the long range there. But it goes back far, and we have to look ahead long term, because obviously it has long term implications. We can't resolve the drought overnight. We need either multiple days of steady rainfall, or we need multiple rain events to move through.
So the empirical data is there. This isn't just anecdotal. This isn't just feeling like this. This is the data. The data
supports it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not just looking outside or it's been dry. No, it's been dry, and especially the rain we've had in July and in June was very localized. But I think so far this month, where I mean, at least some areas got a bit of meaningful rain overnight. The showers just have not been there. It's been super, super dry. And it's just, it's unfortunate because we need more rain, but also, we don't get nice weather all year round here.
Right.
You
almost feel guilty.
You feel guilty enjoying it.
That's
like
right. I can hear it in your forecast. I mean, usually, we had fun here with Boo Hiss and all that. And that happened. That seems like forever ago now.
Well, right.
Right.
Every weekend with some showers or some rain. It's like, where's that going?
But part of it being a broadcasting weather specialist, meteorologist, is bringing good news and good weather. And now it kind of feels that that's not there right now.
Well, right. I mean, we were talking for weeks about, can you at least bring in a nice forecast, right? And it's like now it's been nice, and it hasn't stopped being nice. And it's like it's good because we want to enjoy it, but at the same time, it's like, something has to give because now it's starting to affect people. Your wells are going dry. Your livelihood could be impacted because if you're a farmer, you're having to irrigate your fields or your crop is not producing the yield that you were anticipating this year. The impacts, beyond it just being
go to
campgrounds, tourism,
right.
There's impacts there. It's not just as simple as, it's dry and it's hot and, you're either enjoying the weather or maybe you're not if you're not, say, a fan of the heat. But similar to the winter where if, we don't get as much snow as one is expecting, people rely on that. So people rely on, a balance of nice weather and some rain because obviously, we are a coastal climate that relies on at least getting some rain to help with multiple sectors of our industry.
Yeah, for sure. What is fire weather?
So fire weather is there's 6 standard components of the fire weather index system that provides a numerical rating of wildland fire potential. So, and if you'll indulge me a bit, it's a bit of a not complicated, but just a lot of technical jargon. So there's 3 components. The first 3 are moisture codes that follow daily changes in moisture content and 3 classes of forest fuel with different drying rates. So for each, there are 2 phases, one for wetting by rain and one for drying. And it's arranged so that the higher values represent lower moisture contents and greater flammability. The final 3 components are fire behavior indexes, represented by the rate of spread, the amount of fuel available, and the fire intensity, and their values increase as fire weather severity worsens. So the system is dependent on weather only and does not consider differences, say, in risk, fuel, or topography. It's a uniform method of rating fire danger here in Canada, so it takes a lot of different aspects into effect, the fine fuel moisture code, the Duff moisture code, the drought code, and then the initial spread index, the buildup index, and the fire weather index, which combines, the initial spread index and the buildup index. And obviously, weather is crucial in the spread of a wildfire. When it's hot, dry, and windy, that's the perfect recipe for a wildfire to spread. There's that 30-30 rule, the crossover rule, when, it's temperatures are at or above 30 degrees, the relative humidity's at or below 30%, and wind speeds are at or above 30 kilometers per hour. You get that crossover effect where the risk of a wildfire igniting or spreading is significantly increased. And, obviously, I don't think in all cases were we at, say, the 30-30-30 rule earlier in the week when we started to see some of these wildfires pop up. But I mean, it was the heat was record breaking in Nova Scotia and all of the region earlier this week. I mean, New Brunswick was close to breaking its all-time high temperature record. PEI broke its all-time high temperature record. It was, 38 degrees on PEI, which is, I mean, it's happened back in 1935, but it doesn't happen every day. And even in Nova Scotia, we didn't break our all-time record, but I mean, temperatures were in the mid and upper 30s, earlier in the week. And I'm used to seeing, 33s and 34s at the official weather stations. Obviously, you often hear a lot of reports of, people who report higher temperatures from a personal weather station, or maybe their thermometer on their deck or their vehicle, which can provide less accuracy. But these are really warm temperatures that we've been experiencing. And in general, while humidity, I'd say, has been noticeable this summer, it's been lower, but the number of 30-degree days has been greater. At last check, I believe we were at 7 or 8 at Stanfield, and in the average summer, that would be about 3. And in the city at Shearwater, the average is 1 30-degree day per year, and we've had 2. So, and even places like St. John's, where it usually doesn't get hot in the summer, they've had, I believe it's now 5 or 6 30-degree days. That breaks a record too. So it's been a hot summer and very dry, and it just all combines to, to unfortunately lead to these risks of fires and
right.
drought.
Okay, and quickly, Hurricane Aaron is something we're watching closely.
Yeah, something to monitor. It's just become a hurricane today. We'll be tracking generally towards the northwest over the coming days, and expected to turn towards the north between Bermuda and the Bahamas. Right now, I'd say confidence is medium and increasing, that it should hold offshore, but it's still a chance that it might brush close enough to at least bring maybe some outer bands of weather. I'd say, like I said, most of the guidance holding it far enough offshore to not have a direct impact on the weather, but some bringing it a bit closer, just some uncertainty in that forecast. So we need to monitor it. That is still, we're in the 6 to 7 day window. That doesn't start to solidify until, usually at least around day 5. So later this weekend, early next week, we'll have a pretty good sense of where it will be going and if it'll impact us at all.
Okay, Al, appreciate it. Thanks for coming in, bud.
Thank you.
Okay, Allister Aalders, our weather specialist. Sports and Cecil when we come back.
Facts.
All right, time to talk sports with our sports guru, Cecil Wright. Cecil, thanks for joining us as always, my friend.
You know what? Last night I was out announcing a baseball game, and a gentleman came up to me, said that he listens to you and I at 1:45, and said how much he enjoys the banter between us. Fortunately for you, I was in the middle of doing the game, so I couldn't talk too much, but I was going to tell him that call in and get you. His name is Ross, is all I can remember. Seemed like a nice guy.
Nice. That's great feedback. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good to hear that. So how did the tournament go last week, the Under-21 tournament?
Oh, man, was it ever fantastic. Nova Scotia, represented by the Halifax Mets, played for the gold medal. They lost 2-0. So they came away with the silver medal. Mm-hmm. But this young pitcher named Evan Phillips, a young left-handed pitcher, he only gave up a couple of hits. One of them was a 2-run blast. It was his only mistake of the game. They lost 2-0 as a result of that. But my goodness, did these guys ever play well?
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I was so proud of them.
Good stuff. And what else do you got going on locally? You're calling games, obviously. Give everybody what you're doing locally here.
Well, we got a game tonight at the Mainland Common. The Metro Brewers are hosting the Dartmouth Dry, and of course, everybody knows Dartmouth Dry is the king of the hill right now, and has been for many years in this part of the woods. And the Brewers, they came off a big win over Halifax recently. They were behind 4-0, came back at 1-5-4. So it should be a pretty good game tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Come on out.
Nice stuff. I got to get down at some point. I have to do that. I absolutely will do that. I promise you. All right. So you're talking about King of the Hill. How about the Blue Jays? I know every week I bring this up, and every week you say they're going to falter and that the wheels are going to come off. Yet they don't come off. They haven't yet. What are your thoughts on what the Blue Jays are doing? The first team to hit 70 win mark in the American League this year. What are your thoughts on the Jays?
Well, good for the Jays. I think it's good for Canada. There are so many Toronto fans in this country. It keeps everybody's spirits up, and with the way things are going politically in our country and south of the border, we need something to look forward to on a daily basis. So that's good. Now, having said that, I still don't expect that they're going to be able to maintain this kind of a pace. I think that would be asking too much of anybody, with the possible exception of the Milwaukee Brewers, who might never lose another game ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the Blue Jays are playing well. I'll give them credit, but I still don't think it's going to last.
No, but they've beaten some good teams, including the Cubs recently, because that was the thought, is they had a pretty easy schedule for a bit, but they've maintained a pretty good record against some tough teams over the past 7 days.
2 weeks from now, I can't hear what you've got to say when they started their descent.
All right, we shall see. Again, I'm no Jays fan by any stretch, so I'm not rooting for them, but I just think that it's they deserve to get the credit. Look, Max Scherzer at the age of 40 years old pitched into the 8th inning last night, I think it was. That guy he's got a lot of mojo left, right?
Listen, did you see the game? I think it was last week where he matched up against Clayton Kershaw.
Yep.
You know, I mean, the two of them are both around the same age. Easily, they're going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. I mean, if they're not, there's something wrong with those sports writers who are voting. But I give Scherzer a lot of credit because I thought he was done, quite honestly.
Yeah.
You know, when you have arm problems at, you know, your late 30s, early 40s, it doesn't bode well for your future. But he's bounced back nicely. I give him credit.
There you go. And the Red Sox are 5 out. The Yankees are 6.5 out. And I suppose it's anything can happen at this point. Between the Red Sox and the Yankees, which team do you think is better positioned to potentially take a run at the Blue Jays?
Are you kidding? The Red Sox, of course. I mean, Aaron Judge can't play the field, which means Mike Stanton has to. So you know he's going to get hurt. He's going to pull a muscle or something. It's a matter of time. And the Red Sox, you know, they got an exciting young team, and Bregman's still performing well, and Trevor Story's bounced back nicely. I would say of those two teams, keep an eye on the Sox.
All right, before we wrap things up, any word from the Canada Games in Newfoundland? They obviously got fires over there, which delayed some of the matches. But how's the baseball or the softball going, or what's any word from the Canada Games?
Well, the baseball, I just finished their watching or listening to their game via Game Changer, and Nova Scotia lost their final game to Ontario. I think it was 10-3. They got out to a 3-0 lead, but ran into some trouble. You got to have pitching. You got to have more than enough pitching because you can't expect anybody to throw a complete game over there. So Halifax came back with their starting pitcher from their opening game, and he threw well for an inning or two, but then he just kind of ran out of gas.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Cecil, always great, my friend. We'll see you down at the ball field.
My pleasure.
Okay, pal, take care. Cecil Wright, our sports guru, and we do that each and every Friday, of course, and always enjoy our segments, and absolutely good banter there for sure. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Den Ness on the other side of the glass of the control board, doing a fine job as always. Have yourself a great weekend, everybody. We're back on Monday, 10 o'clock. See you then.